Hi everyone, welcome back. The lesson for today is only my condemnation injures me. Now, this is a true thought, right? This is a thought that you should definitely practice in your Course in Miracles, regular practice of the day, because it really represents that conversion of thought. Because the thinking of the world, right, the way you used to think before tells you that you're being hurt by something out there, right? Someone says something to you, someone does something to you, right? The world is acting on you. But that's not really true, right? What's really going on is the world is meaningless. It doesn't do anything. It's an effect. It's not a cause, right? It's not a cause. It's an effect of your mind, right? But in itself, it's meaningless. Your thoughts give it meaning, right? Right? And then that's all the meaning it has for you, right? Once you withdraw that meaning, you can actually see God's meaning reflected on it. But for a moment, you got to be willing to stand there in your unknowingness and let it be whatever it is, right? But what's so beautiful is that really think of the world as a representation of your own thoughts, right? As a reflection of your mind, because that's what it is, right? So the world doesn't do anything to you. It has no power to do anything to you. It just is an effect of your thoughts. It's your thoughts that injure you, right? It's the thoughts that you have about it. So this is that reversal in thought. That instead of when you feel hurt and you think something out there is doing something to me, you go like, wait, I'm affected only by my own thoughts. It's my thoughts I should be concerned about. Right? It says injury is impossible. First line. Is that true? Let's look at it, right? Why is injury impossible? You're whole and perfect as God created you. Their injury is impossible, right? You go like, well, maybe so, but the self I made can be injured. Well, yeah, but the self you made is not real. Therefore, it's impossible to be injured. See how that thinking just shifts from that you always want to compromise illusions with truth. Yeah, but in the illusion, no, injury is impossible because you are whole and perfect as God created you, right? The thing that thinks it can be injured has absolutely no reality. That self-concept of yourself, that self-identity. And it says, and yet illusion makes illusion. If you can condemn, you can be injured. Well, yeah, because all attack is self-attack, right? You're not really attacking anything out there. That's impossible, right? You're just attacking yourself, right? Any condemnation is self-condemnation, right? For you have believed that you can injure, and the right you've established for yourself can now be used against you, till you lay it down as valueless, unwanted, and unreal. Unless you stop attacking, you will be attacked. What's that lesson 23, I believe? I can escape from the world by giving up attack thoughts. Again, thoughts, attack, right? Those two things. Beautiful. Condemn and you're made a prisoner. Forgive and you're freed. True, what you bind on earth is bound in heaven. What you free on earth is freed in heaven. That's just a true thing, right? Forgiveness is the entire practice of this Course in Miracles. When you forgive, you set yourself free. When you forgive, you'll remember who you are. When you forgive, right, you raise your frequency to the point that, you'll just leave here. But you leave by raising your frequency. Huh? That's what forgiveness does to you. It gives you the peace of God, right? It gives you the freedom that you've been looking for, and the rest that you've been looking for, and the joy that you've been looking for. But condemn, and you'll receive the opposite. It is not a law that knowledge understands, for freedom is a part of knowledge. To condemn is thus impossible in truth. What seems to be its influence and its effects have not occurred at all. Why? None of this is so. Right? Why is forgiveness easy? Because none of this is so. Right? I mean, I hear that a lot. Well, forgiveness isn't easy. Or I'm trying to forgive him. Well, the problem is that you think what you're forgiving is real. It's not real. You gotta first make that step that none of this is so. Otherwise, you're just lost in trying to forgive something that happened to you. Nothing happened to you, right? What happened to you is not real. What happened to you is part of a dream. What happened to you is something that you are setting up within your own dream so that you can then think it's real. Now, forgiveness is easy because it recognizes that what has occurred to you, that what you think has occurred to you hasn't. Right? Nothing's been done to you. But you have to make that step, otherwise forgiveness is impossible. Huh? Amazing. To condemn is thus impossible in truth. Yeah. And that's what he means, of course. But that's the step you got to make, because there's such a tendency, right, to say, yeah, but in the dream, you always want to compromise, but that's the human condition. You go to compromise, right? No. Make that step to that uncompromising way of thinking, because that's how you speed up this transition. So, what seems to be its influence and its effects have not occurred at all, yet we must deal with them a while as if they had. Illusion makes illusion except one. Forgiveness is illusion that is answer to the rest. He says, yeah, of course you have to look at it, right? You have to deal with it for a moment. If you didn't think that nothing, if you really didn't think anything had happened, forgiveness wouldn't be necessary. No, but because of that, you condemn, correct? And therefore, now you have to forgive. So yes, you have to deal with it for a moment, but, right? Forgiveness dissolves the illusion, right? Forgiveness takes away the illusion. That's how you got to think about this. Forgiveness is still an illusion, of course. In truth, there's nothing to forgive. God created you whole and perfect. What could there possibly be to forgive? But here there is a necessity. But still, it's an illusion that is answer to all other illusions. What a great lesson, right? Listen, there is a kind of a philosophy associated with the Course in Miracles, right? You have to make this your own by shifting that mindset, right? Don't allow yourself to compromise, because there's always a yeah, but this, what, but that, right? I sometimes get questions, yeah, what about, you say disease is a defense against the truth, but what about this, what about that? Or do I have to forgive this damn one and forgive that one? Look how horrible this was. And you get all these exceptions, but remember how the workbook starts. It said one exception, held apart from true perception, makes it accomplishment anywhere impossible. Why? If you make an exception to this, right? Yes, I'm going to apply forgiveness to everything, but not to that, right? Or this particular lesson applies to everything, but what about this? That can't be right. That's how you make the exceptions, and then the goal of this course is impossible. You have to understand that none of this is so, right? You'll set all these images up outside of you, and one of them is going to somehow represent something to you that it doesn't apply to. Yes, it applies to that. Again, it's that uncompromising way of thinking. You have to make your own. You have to somehow allow yourself not to bow down to these idols of sickness, the idols of fear that you set up outside yourself that are constantly tempting you to deny your own identity again. This is what you did before, right? You've seen the consequences of that. Why would you continue to do that? Because it's not so, right? Forgiveness sweeps all other dreams away, and though it is itself a dream, it breeds no others. All illusions, save this one, must multiply 1,000-fold, but this is where illusions end. Forgiveness is the end of dreams, because it is a dream of waking. What else is there to say? Forgiveness is the end of dreams. When you forgive, you wake up. There is no option, because it's the end of dreaming. It dissolves the illusions, because the illusions are all based on vengeance. Okay? Beautiful. What a lesson. Forgiveness is the only road. Listen to this. He's not just writing these lessons as if they're No. He means this because this is true. Listen to this. Forgiveness is the only road that leads out of disaster, past all suffering, not some forms of suffering, all suffering, right? And finally away from death. How could there be another way when this one is the plan of God Himself? This is God's plan. Forgive and you'll see this differently, right? And why would you oppose it, right? Quarrel with it. Seek to find 1,000 ways in which it must be wrong, 1,000 other possibilities. You're going to come up with these things, right? I hear it often. right? That you get a message or an email, or we go out teaching, and yeah, but what about this or what about that? And that's just that's just your that's just the individual mind's intention of not hearing this at all, right? It's going to object to God. It's going to object to His plan. It's going to object to the to the simpleness of this teaching. Because why is this teaching simple? Because it means exactly what it says. Because there are no exceptions to it, right? Love this. Beautiful. This world has many seeming separate haunts, where mercy has no meaning and attack appears to be justified. Turn on your TV. Absolutely, right? Yet all are one. A place where death is offered to God's Son and to His Father. You may think they have accepted, but if you look again upon the place where you beheld their blood, you'll perceive a miracle instead. That's it, right? Look again, think again, right? Change your mind, right? It's not what you think it is. It is not thus, right? The miracle transcends the laws of space and time, right? There is nothing that your holiness cannot do. Absolutely not. You've been given all power in the universe, right? Love that. Your holiness, well, that's the lesson that we recently did. Your holiness is beyond all laws of space and time. You can do anything, but for that you have to first accept who you are, right? You have to first let go of the illusion about yourself. There are no limitations on you. You're whole and perfect, right? You cannot get sick, you cannot die, you cannot suffer, none of that. You go like, well, sure I can. Well, and there you go again, right? But that's the practice, isn't it? That's the practice where you catch yourself, or you catch yourself today in your thoughts and your suffering, or you're reminiscing about something, or you catch wait, stop, and then you take it up, repeat the lesson, repeat the thought that corrects this, and invites the miracle, because it invites the miracle. Beautiful. I love this part where it says, "Now there is silence all around the world." This is when you get to the other side, right? For a moment, that correction sweeps across your tortured mind, right? Thoughts keep coming, and suddenly there's this, right? And the stillness enters, and you feel at peace, and you're right here, and everything seems, whatever was bothering you before, your anger, your fears, your concerns are gone. You can't even find them, right? And the peace of God has entered in. And this is what he's talking about. And that's what the practice offers you. Now there is silence all around the world. Now is there stillness, where before there was a frantic rush of thoughts that made no sense. Now there is a tranquil light across the face of earth, made quiet in a dreamless sleep. And now the word of God alone remains upon it. Only that can be perceived an instant longer. Then are symbols done, and everything you ever thought you made completely vanished from the mind that God forever knows to be His only Son. That's the practice. That's the practice. You simply start practicing these thoughts irregardless of the situation to which they are being applied. Make no exceptions, right? They apply to everything that happens to you today. But when you do, when you least expect it, it goes like, right? I'm just, and there is a stillness and a peace and a light in you that you know is not from here, right? And that sets your mind at ease, and suddenly, there it is. The peace that you've been looking for, the peace of God, the rest, the tranquility, the joy. That's what you're looking for, right? And it simply arises from practice. That's the practice of A Course in Miracles. These are why we do the workbook lessons. I know many of you out there have experienced this, and this is why you keep on practicing. Because when you forget, you go back, right? You constantly remind yourself. But that rewards, when that correction takes place, and you finally just go like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. This takes care of all my problems. Yes, it does, right? That's the reward. But that's also what you've been given as your natural inheritance, right? And more. and more, but of that we cannot speak, right? But that's what you've been given. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're trying to attain. It has nothing to do with anything. You don't necessarily get it through meditation or through years of contemplation or any of that. This course is meant to save you time, right? This does not take a long time. It just requires practice. It just requires acceptance. A Course in Miracles can do in 1 second what would have taken you 1,000 years to accomplish. It's, that's what this is. It's a celestial speed up, right? You're being sped up in time. So I love you. Have a great, great day wherever and whenever you are. Remember, practice these beautiful thoughts that you're given, and remember who gave them to you, right? Who is giving them to you, right? They're from whole minds, out of time. To you, we still think you live in time, but now are ready to wake up, right? And to experience something that is not of this world, right? Because that's all we're offering. We're offering an experience not of this world, right? And then you can step in your function here, right? Because now you're given a function. You've had the experience, and now you step in your function, um, and you teach, right? You give it away. However you think that you're going to do that, there are no right or wrong ways in that. And there's just a way of giving, right? You can give with words, you can give without words, right? But you have to give it away to keep it, right? Because giving and receiving are the same. I love you. Have a great day, and I'll see you everywhere.